So I decided to use an admix to do my final composite, my final merge, but I noticed that I'd forgotten to set it up correctly. Right now it's getting a pre-multiplied input, and by default it expects an unpremultiplied input. So let me check this off right now to tell it it's getting a pre-multiplied input, and that will fix the logic of the admix. And when trying to composite such extremely fine detail and something against a screen, having all of the premultiplication logic perfect is important, because otherwise you'll get a double premultiplied edge look. Your edges will look unnaturally dark, and a lot of details like this will not be apparent. The fact that the screen is still bleeding through. So if we look at our screen upstream here, it's actually quite obvious that the screen has not been fully suppressed, and that the matte actually has some of that in there as well. So we need to get rid of that, and that's what the out matte is for. So let's build an out matte very quickly to get rid of all of this additional noise outside of Everman that we don't want, hopefully without losing too much of this detail. So to do that, I'm just going to use a simple keyer, I think, because it'll probably do the job. Keyer. And we'll use it in green screen mode. So this is basically just doing a simple color difference key, like we learned last week. This is, there we go, just doing the trick. And this matte can be extremely, extremely hard, because it's almost like a procedural G matte, really. As long as it doesn't sizzle, it's okay that it be extremely hard. So it seems like this is doing the trick. Heck, we might upgrade our core matte to something like this, if our core matte keeps giving us trouble. There we go. Really hard matte. And it's not perfectly clean, so I need to get rid of this extra junk on the edges here. So I'll just use a roto. I'm hitting O, and I'll drop down a box rectangle. Invert the meaning of the shape, and then make the color black. And I will make everything black. Leave it in the alpha. So right now it's only being written out to the alpha channel, but I want to suppress all of this noise in the screen here, and I also want to suppress the noise in the alpha. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle this alpha channel that I've created out to every single channel, and then I'm going to min this really hard out matte with my image here. So we'll take the minimum of the two. Now you notice right now it's smaller than the other, so it's cutting off all my detail. I need to erode this out here. Need to dilate it out, actually. Just use an erode filter, and I will dilate this image until where it doesn't cut off any more detail than necessary. So we're going to fill in some of this hair detail with an additional detail matte, so I'm not going to stress about that, but I will worry about these little flyaway hairs and stuff here. Get it as tight as I can. And if we look at the RGB, we'll see it's also cutting off all the noise there as well. So let's look at our admix again and see where we're at. Ooh, looks like I'd only set the thing to dilate on the alpha channel, so I'll set it to dilate the RGB and alpha channel. And now it's dilating out enough to clean up the noise, but not eat up the RGB of Everman's beauty image. So now it's time to address these clumpiness we're getting in the hairs up here, and to get some of that detail back. Looks like, and I'll have to deal with these colored edges over here that are giving me trouble, but we'll deal with these problems one at a time. So first, let's take care of this clumpiness in his hair. Let's see if there's any way that I can get more out of my beauty mat without damaging it, my soft mat. I'm going to try the red-green weight first. It looks like I'm able to get a little more density out of this without damaging the quality of my mat. Let's see if I can increase my red weight at all. I might not get that lucky. No. So turning up the gain a little bit on my blue-green weight. My red weight can't get away with too much of that without getting the mat harder. Yeah. Which means now I may be able to shrink my core mat a little bit more without making his edges totally transparent. Now at this point we pretty much have to view it at the merge. And I think I'm losing yes, I'm losing density in my mat here, but that seems to be working. There we go. So it's getting a little transparent up here. And, oh. Don't want the mat to grow. Okay. So now it seems to me that my best solution is probably going to be to do a spot fix just to this area in his hair up here, because if I shrink my core mat too much, oh, see the red, the blue-green weight adjusted the D-spill too, so we'll have to attack the D-spill separately and the screen suppression. The best solution, though, here seems that I'm to have to do a separate adjustment for this hair area, because if I try to adjust it with the entire core mat, I can't keep a solid core mat. So that's okay. We can do that. I'm going to use a roto shape to isolate that area of his hair up here. And because he doesn't really move his head much, he only moves horizontally a little bit, I think I could get away with one GMAT that will let me do this whole area. So I'm just going to create a very quick rectangular shape, and I'm going to feather it. So we'll look at this roto. I'm going to feather this shape just uniformly. So that I get a nice feather that goes up into where his hair is. And then I'm going to adjust just as the region of his hair separately from everything else. And to do that, I'm going to use a filter erode. Just duplicate that one, copy, paste. And now we'll just adjust the region of his hair separately using an erode. Here we go. I'm going to try to be a little bit, gentle there. But we're going to add another beauty mat just to fill that region. So I'm not stressed about being too transparent. That's what we're about to attack now. All right, so now that we've gotten a pretty reasonable core mat, it's filling his core. We've gotten the hair mostly working. We'll clean up some of this noise, maybe with our out mat. We'll see if we can get away with that. No, we'll clean that. We'll clean this noise. I think this noise is actually detail. So when we put our detail mat in to capture this hairs again, hopefully we'll bring them back in. But we have a reasonable core mat. It's not perfectly dense on the edges here, but it doesn't seem to be creating a problem in our merge. Oop, spoke too soon. It is. So now we have to be a little bit less zealous on that shrinking of our core mat here. And see if that... There we go. And I'm going to blur just the hair area here. So I'm going to put a blur node down. Blur only the alpha. By this mat to smooth out this area up here that I'm editing a little bit. There we go. Looking much better. Okay. So now the next step would be to move on to recapture any of these little hair details that we lost, which this is a good time to wire up the wipe controls. So I put that on 1 and this on 2. I'm going to wipe between the two to see if I'm losing anything between the two. If the edges seem to shrink terribly, which they don't seem to be shrinking on his ears, if they seem to grow terribly, his hair, I'm losing a little bit of hair detail here along the side of his head. And I'm losing a lot of the little flyaway hairs and clumps of hair on the top of his head. So now the thing to do would be to attack those areas. Getting a little dark edge there. We'll worry about some of these areas like on his clothing and his, these hard edges as we do our color correction. Because once we color correct this, it's going to change some of these details also, like this suppression. I think we're going to have to bring in some of our own screen suppression to compensate for some of these IBKs obviously not doing the best job. And I'm going to mix in some of our own screen suppression with the IBK screen suppression, which seems to be reasonably decent but not perfect. So yeah, I think the next big thing to hit is to get his hair up here working. So we're going to do that in the next video.